A local cop pulls a gun on a black Secret Service agent, mocks his credentials, but is later disarmed, exposed, and detained by other federal agents after the incident is captured on video and widely spread across Facebook and YouTube. These are stories I have witnessed, with the names changed to protect the privacy of those involved. I don't want to tell them like dry news reports, but as real fragments of life, carrying simple yet meaningful lessons. Never judge anyone based on the color of their skin. Before we begin, tell me, what time is it where you are, and where in the world are you watching from? Please share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. But now, let's explore together. On a Tuesday morning, not too early to feel like the world was still asleep, but just late enough for the hustle and bustle of the day to begin, Quentin pulled into the Chevron station on East Blackstock Road in Spartanburg, driving a black SUV with government plates. He looked more like someone from Washington, D.C. than someone stopping for coffee in a small-town gas station, tall and solid, in his 40s with a calm yet commanding presence. Quentin wore a charcoal suit with a clean white shirt, no tie, and an earpiece. He wasn't there for snacks or a break. He just needed a cup of black coffee. As he made his way into the store, he blended into the background, but his confident posture and subtle badge displayed only to those who knew where to look commanded respect. However, a local deputy, Ray Denslow, wasn't interested in Quentin's calm demeanor or his quiet professionalism, pulling up fast with his chest puffed and his aviators on despite the cloudy sky. Denslow immediately assumed something was off. He was quick to assume authority over the situation, barking orders and questioning Quentin's presence as if he had no right to be there. Little did he know, he was about to face the consequences of his assumptions. As Deputy Ray Denslow stepped out of his patrol car, his eyes immediately locked on the black SUV and the man in the suit, Quentin. Without a moment's hesitation, he approached Quentin, who was calmly sipping his coffee, and demanded to know if he owned the vehicle. Quentin, maintaining his calm composure, answered politely that the car was indeed his, and that he was on official duty, showing no signs of concern. However, Denslow was having none of it. He grew agitated and demanded Quentin's name, his voice growing louder with each passing second. "You got registration," Denslow barked, stepping closer to Quentin, his hand dangerously hovering near his sidearm. Quentin, still calm, answered in a level tone, introducing himself as Deputy Chief Quentin Dre of the United States Secret Service. Instead of backing off, Denslow only became more aggressive. He questioned whether the car was stolen or belonged to a relative, mocking Quentin's attire and badge. When Quentin tried to reach for his credentials, Denslow snapped, mocking him for possibly carrying a fake badge, his voice now dripping with disdain. Denslow took 2 quick steps forward and pulled out his gun. The moment was escalating quickly, and the tension in the air was palpable. Quentin, unshaken, set his coffee cup on the ground and slowly knelt down, lacing his fingers behind his head. He calmly stated that he wasn't a threat and that his credentials were in his jacket. But Denslow wasn't listening. The gun remained aimed at Quentin, and with a mocking chuckle, Denslow taunted him. "Man thinks he's in a movie." As Quentin knelt there, the situation grew increasingly dangerous. People began noticing the confrontation, with a few onlookers starting to pull out their phones, capturing the scene. But it wasn't until Denslow yanked open the door of Quentin's SUV that everything began to change. Expecting to find something incriminating, Denslow was instead met with a laptop docked into the console and a government-issued ID clipped to the glove box. The items in the car, as Quentin calmly pointed out, were legally protected under federal law, and Denslow's unauthorized search was a clear violation. At this point, the situation shifted dramatically. Quentin, now visibly calm, spoke up clearly for everyone to hear. "You just opened a secured federal vehicle without probable cause." Denslow froze, momentarily unsure of how to proceed, and then a second black SUV pulled into the lot, this time with tinted windows and a quiet engine. Inside, someone had witnessed the entire interaction, and they weren't laughing, as Denslow's finger hovered too close to the trigger. The atmosphere shifted, and Quentin's calm and composed demeanor began to draw the attention of not just the crowd, but a whole new level of authority. As Denslow stood still, with his gun drawn, his focus remained locked on Quentin, still kneeling with his hands behind his head. The tension in the air was thick, and the crowd had gathered around, some recording the encounter, while others anxiously observed, unsure of what would happen next. Denslow, frustrated and unwilling to let go of his assumption, paced around Quentin like a predator circling its prey. With every step, his voice grew louder, accusing Quentin of being someone he wasn't, throwing out wild accusations of stolen cars and fake badges. Despite the escalating aggression, Quentin remained calm, refusing to be provoked. It was clear that Denslow's bias and quick judgment were clouding his actions. But Quentin did not fight back, as the officer continued to circle. Quentin said nothing. He knew that silence was safer in this volatile moment. Then came the moment that completely shifted the dynamic. Denslow, still with his gun aimed, opened the door of the SUV. He expected to find something that would justify his actions, maybe drugs, weapons, or anything that could support his unfounded suspicions. Instead, he found only a laptop and a government-issued ID. Standard fare for a federal officer on duty. Quentin's voice, clear and controlled, rang out. "You just opened a secured federal vehicle without probable cause." The words hit Denslow like a slap to the face. But he wasn't ready to back down just yet. He had made up his mind, and he wasn't about to let the truth interfere with his need to assert authority. But the sound of another vehicle pulling into the parking lot caught his attention. And as the second black SUV rolled up, everything changed. Inside, a new presence arrived, Kendra Moss, a senior special agent with the United States Secret Service. She stepped out of the vehicle with quiet authority, her demeanor professional but unwavering. As she walked up to the scene, Quentin remained on his knees, never once showing fear or anger. Kendra, without hesitation, addressed Denslow, asking for an explanation of his actions. The officer's bravado cracked, and, for the first time, he hesitated, lowering his gun just slightly as he began to explain his actions. But Kendra wasn't having any of it. She swiftly pulled out her credentials and made it clear that Quentin was her superior. With one sharp sentence, she shattered Denslow's fragile confidence. "You pulled a weapon on a federal officer." The words were like a punch to the gut, and Denslow's defiance began to crumble as Kendra's calm, commanding presence took over. The crowd, once a passive observer, now murmured among themselves, realizing the severity of what had just unfolded. But the most surprising part was yet to come. A third black SUV pulled into the lot, and two more special agents emerged. One, with gray temples and sharp features, approached Quentin with a low voice, asking if he was injured. Quentin, still kneeling and unshaken, replied that he was fine. The agents, now fully aware of the injustice that had taken place, turned their attention to Denslow. His authority was slipping through his fingers, and the realization that he had made a terrible mistake began to set in. The investigation that followed would change everything for Denslow. But at that moment, Quentin remained calm, still not speaking out of anger, but simply observing the chain of events that would unfold. As the third SUV arrived and the special agents began to take control of the situation, Denslow's confidence was visibly slipping. The two agents, now fully engaged, made it clear that the local deputy was in serious trouble. Quentin, still on his knees and maintaining his calm, did not flinch as the agents addressed Denslow. He could feel the weight of the moment, but didn't allow himself to become consumed by it. One agent, a man with gray temples, stepped forward and asked Quentin if he was injured. Quentin, without a trace of emotion, simply replied, "No, sir," as if the events were nothing more than a routine conversation. The agents, now fully aware of the gravity of the situation, began to assert their authority over Denslow. With the eyes of the crowd and the camera lenses trained on the unfolding drama, the situation had shifted beyond just an encounter between a cop and a federal agent. It had become a public spectacle, and everyone knew it. Denslow, realizing the mistake he had made, could no longer deny the gravity of his actions. The moment of realization was evident on his face. He had gone from playing the role of the authority figure to the one under investigation. His body language, once filled with pride and arrogance, now deflated, and the mounting pressure was palpable. The agents made it clear that Denslow was about to face federal consequences. As they took his weapon and ordered him to stand aside, the severity of the moment became undeniable. The crowd, which had been silent up until now, began murmuring. They realized that this wasn't just a case of a misunderstanding. It was about power, prejudice, and the assumptions made when someone didn't fit a certain mold. Denslow's assumption that Quentin was somehow out of place, simply because of his race, appearance, and the way he carried himself had led to this breakdown. Quentin, however, did not allow his calm exterior to crack. He could feel the eyes on him, the weight of the moment. But he knew the best way to regain control was through composure. This was more than just about him now. It was about showing the world how to handle situations of injustice without resorting to aggression. His calmness, his unshakable confidence in who he was, became the counterpoint to Denslow's spiraling actions. Quentin didn't need to yell or become aggressive to prove his point. He had already done so by simply remaining calm and not reacting in the way Denslow expected. The scene was now under control. But the real change had taken place within Denslow. His perspective had shifted from that of an officer in control to one facing the consequences of his unchecked bias and assumption. For Quentin, this was a lesson in personal integrity, patience, and the quiet power of standing firm in the face of adversity. The investigation into Denslow would go on, but in that moment, the power dynamic had shifted, and the consequences of his actions were now clear. As Quentin stood up from the pavement, brushing the dust from his clothes, the weight of the situation shifted. The arrival of the second and third black SUVs marked the beginning of the end for Deputy Denslow's actions. But for Quentin, it was the start of something far bigger. While the officers around him began to take control of Denslow's future, Quentin remained composed, his expression calm, as he exchanged a few quiet words with the agents. His demeanor, steady and unwavering, served as a quiet testament to the strength of character that was required in moments like these. In the immediate aftermath, as the media began buzzing and the public took to social media, Quentin realized that his role in this event wasn't over. In fact, it had just begun. The moment had captured the attention of the nation, and soon, news outlets would be knocking on his door for an interview, questioning him, wanting answers. But Quentin, ever the professional, knew this wasn't about seeking attention or seeking justice for himself. It was about something bigger. It was about ensuring that this kind of bias, this kind of misunderstanding, didn't happen to others. It was about using his platform, his status as a federal agent, to speak out about the importance of integrity and fairness in every interaction. As the days passed, Quentin's role began to evolve. What had started as a simple coffee run had turned into a national conversation about police misconduct, racial bias, and the treatment of individuals based on assumptions. The conversations that followed, whether in the media, in the courtroom, or among the general public, began to create ripples. Quentin's calm handling of the situation had made him a symbol of dignity and strength in the face of adversity. He became a voice for those who were often overlooked, for those whose voices had been silenced because of their race or appearance. His actions set a precedent, showing that even in the most intense situations, maintaining composure and confidence could make a difference. Quentin was aware that the story wasn't about him, but he understood the importance of using his experience to fuel change. As the federal investigation into Denslow's actions progressed, Quentin prepared for the media storm that was sure to follow, but he also knew that his next steps were crucial. In a meeting with his colleagues and superiors, he was given the opportunity to help shape the way the Secret Service and other federal agencies would handle situations like this moving forward. His insight, his experience, and his steady hand would contribute to a larger shift in how law enforcement treated individuals, especially those from marginalized communities. The opportunity for real change had arrived, and Quentin, ever the professional, was ready to embrace it. As the dust settled and the media frenzy intensified, Quentin found himself reflecting on the events that had transpired. The encounter with Deputy Denslow had brought him face to face with a harsh reality, a reality where assumptions were often made based on appearance, race, and authority. But it was in these quiet moments of reflection that Quentin realized the depth of his own growth. He had always known the value of staying composed under pressure, but this situation had forced him to examine his own role in a system that often misunderstood people like him. The growth was not just in how he handled the situation with Denslow, but in how he saw the world around him, how he understood the deeper currents of prejudice that still ran through society. As the investigation into Denslow's actions unfolded, Quentin's role shifted from being a victim of bias to becoming a beacon of change. The media sought him out, eager for interviews, for a statement that could echo his calm, his confidence, and his unwavering sense of justice. But Quentin was not interested in using this moment for self-glorification. Instead, he focused on how his experience could lead to meaningful change within the law enforcement community. He knew that this moment wasn't just about proving he was right. It was about proving that dignity, integrity, and patience were qualities that should define the way law enforcement interacts with every citizen, regardless of their background. In the weeks that followed, Quentin worked closely with the Secret Service and other federal agencies to ensure that the lessons learned from this encounter would not be forgotten. He knew that true change didn't come from being right in the moment. It came from pushing for systemic shifts that would prevent similar incidents from occurring in the future. But Quentin also understood that growth was not just about working within the system. It was about speaking truth to power, about using his platform to raise awareness about the injustices that people of color, especially Black individuals, face daily. He became an advocate for fairness, and his voice became one that demanded accountability, not just for Denslow, but for the entire system that allowed such biases to flourish. Quentin's growth wasn't limited to his professional life. It seeped into his personal life as well. He began to see the world through a clearer lens, one that wasn't clouded by the pressures of maintaining the status quo. He was more aware of the stories of others, the ones that didn't make headlines, the quiet struggles that were often ignored. Through it all, Quentin never lost sight of the lesson that had kept him grounded in the heat of the moment, the power of staying calm and composed, no matter the external chaos. He had learned, in a profound way, that growth wasn't just about overcoming challenges. It was about using those challenges to fuel a larger purpose, one that would help create a more just and equitable world for everyone. The growth that Quentin experienced after the incident was not just internal. It was a catalyst for change, for a better future. As Quentin reflected on everything that had happened, he realized that the events at the gas station had been more than just a confrontation with a local officer. They had been a turning point in his life, a moment that would continue to shape him for years to come. The experience of being unfairly targeted, of having a gun pointed at him because of assumptions based on his appearance, had been harrowing. But it had also shown him something powerful: the strength of composure, the power of dignity, and the importance of remaining grounded in the face of injustice. Quentin knew that his calm response in that moment had not only diffused a potentially deadly situation, but also sent a message to those watching that, no matter how dire the circumstances, it is possible to stand firm without losing your humanity. As the media coverage of the incident continued to spread, Quentin's story became more than just about the mistreatment he had faced. It became about resilience, about standing tall in the face of adversity, and about using one's position to challenge the status quo. His story was shared far and wide, and the public's perception of him shifted from being just another government agent to being a symbol of what it meant to stand up for what is right, even when the odds are stacked against you. Quentin never sought fame or recognition, but he understood that the moment had found him for a reason. He could not let this opportunity slip by without making a lasting impact. In the months that followed, Quentin used his newfound platform to speak out about systemic bias and the need for reform within law enforcement. His voice, once just a quiet presence within his agency, now resonated far beyond the walls of the Secret Service. He became an advocate for change, working with organizations to push for policies that would ensure that no one else would be treated the way he had been. Through it all, Quentin never lost his humility. He never let the spotlight distract him from his core values of justice, integrity, and respect for every individual, regardless of their background. The message he shared with the world was clear, that even in the face of unfair treatment, it is possible to rise above and demand a better future for everyone. Quentin's courage and composure had transformed a moment of injustice into a powerful movement for change. His story was a testament to the strength of the human spirit, to the importance of standing firm in the face of adversity, and to the belief that, in the end, doing the right thing would always lead to a better world. The fight for justice was not over, but with each voice that joined the call for change, it became clearer that a shift was coming. Quentin knew that the journey ahead would not be easy, but as he had learned on that fateful morning in Spartanburg, with resilience, integrity, and the courage to speak out, anything was possible. The story of Quentin Dre serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of composure, patience, and standing firm in the face of adversity. In a world where biases can dictate how we are treated, Quentin's ability to remain calm under pressure became his greatest strength. His actions remind us that integrity and dignity are essential qualities, especially when confronted with injustice. In a moment where most would have reacted impulsively, Quentin showed the world that silence, respect, and a calm demeanor can be far more powerful than raising your voice or resorting to aggression. The life lesson here is clear. No matter the circumstances, staying true to your principles and handling challenges with grace can make a profound impact. In real life, this translates into the importance of understanding that every interaction, especially in moments of conflict or tension, is an opportunity to demonstrate the strength of character. Whether in personal or professional situations, responding with integrity and poise, rather than succumbing to frustration or anger, can lead to a better resolution. This approach can break cycles of prejudice and show others the power of respectful, composed action, creating a ripple effect for positive change in society. If this story moved you and you believe in the power of integrity, respect, and standing firm in the face of adversity, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Let's keep the conversation going. Leave a comment below, sharing your thoughts on how we can all contribute to a world where respect and fairness prevail, regardless of race or appearance. If you believe that these stories deserve to be told, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you won't miss more impactful content like this. Let's work together to spread the message that every act of dignity can make a difference in creating a more just and understanding society. Your voice matters, and it starts with sharing the truth.